Well, it's lunchtime. It's Friday. Training camp is less than a week and a half away, and that means we can have ourselves some really fun conversations. Been talking a lot about the quarterbacks lately. Big piece on Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance and Kyle Shanahan's usage rate on play action yesterday. So go ahead and check that out. But today I want to talk about this guy, Nick Bosa, one of the best defensive players in the National Football League, the best defensive player on the 49ers roster. We can talk about his contract if you want, but I'd rather talk about this. Can Nick Bosa win the 2022 Defensive Player of the Year award? I thought it was ridiculous that last season Bosa only managed 5 first-team All-Pro votes, despite the fact that he led the NFL, all edge rushers in double team rate, and also led the NFL in tackles for loss. But he didn't register anywhere on the Defensive Player of the Year scale and didn't come close to that All-Pro status because the voting wasn't there. And he was, there are other good edge rushers. I'm going to talk a lot about those guys, but I think that Nick Bosa's 2021 season flew under the radar. This is what the Defensive Player of the Year voting looked like last year. TJ Watt got 42 votes, Micah Parsons 5, Aaron Donald 3. Obviously, really deserving players as far as Defensive Player of the Year voting. But the fact that Nick Bosa couldn't get a few more votes in that 2021 season, to me, was crazy because he was, in fact, double-teamed more than any other edge rusher in that 2021 season. In fact, as we talk about this, I'm going to pull up the graph that really illustrates Nick Bosa's impact and illustrates the potential as well moving into next season. This is double team rate on the x-axis, so going horizontally, pass rush win rate, and ESPN metric on the vertical axis. So that's going up and down. This is from ESPN. So you want to be further up in pass rush win rate, and then if you're Nick Bosa, you'd rather be further to the left in double team rate, but you're Nick Bosa, so you're not going to be further to the left in double team rate because you get double teamed a whole heck of a lot. See, I've circled Nick Bosa on the graph for you. He's way over here on the right, double teamed at a higher rate than any other edge rusher in NFL back in the 2021 season. Yet he's still up here in terms of pass rush win rate. He's still finished with 15.5 sacks. So that goes to show you the impact that Nick Bosa has on football games, because he draws those double teams, draws those triple teams, opens up other players. So he's obviously a black hole there for the opposing offensive lines and opposing ox blockers. They get kind of stuck into that Nick Bosa trajectory. And then other players for the 49ers can do some work. So Bosa is extremely valuable in that regard. And despite the fact that he gets so much attention, he still produces. And this number right here, Nick Bosa led the league with 21 tackles for loss. Despite the fact that he was double teamed so much, I think that says a lot. But we have to emphasize that when we're going to talk about Defensive Player of the Year, raw sack totals are going to matter a lot. And this is one of the reasons, maybe the primary reason, why Nick Bosa wasn't in this conversation on a national level. 15.5 sacks is a lot, especially considering the fact that he came off a torn ACL last year. I mean, to me, why don't we just pause and emphasize this? Bosa tore his ACL week 2 of the 2020 season. It was a gruesome injury in New York on the field turf there at Met Death Stadium, as we might call it, actually MetLife Stadium, but it wasn't good, right? In that 2020 season, Bosa carted off. You knew it was bad as soon as it happened, and the 49ers defense tumbled as a result. They went from overpowering to merely good in that 2020 season because they didn't have Nick Bosa, who is very arguably their most important player. Well, he comes back in this 2021 season and he logs 15.5 sacks. In fact, there's a typo down there. I should have included 15.5, whatever. 15.5 sacks, that's a lot. That's excellent, especially coming off an ACL tear. I think it's excellent no matter who you are, even if you're fully healthy. The thing is, though, that TJ Watt for the Steelers posted 22.5 sacks, full 7 sacks better than Nick Bosa. And I think it's simplistic. I'll be the first to tell you that we should look at sacks and defensive production in a more sophisticated manner. We should go out there and we should look at pressure rate. How many times is a guy hitting the quarterback? We should look at double team rate as well. But unfortunately, I think this voting is probably more on the simplistic side. It's not utilizing all the advanced metrics that we have. And the fact that TJ Watt, all credit to him, had those 22.5 sacks that put him in the driver's seat, coming off the edge, registering sack after sack, multi-sack game after multi-sack game. That gets the headlines, that gets the votes. That's what happened last year. So it's going to be key for Bosa, I think, to close the gap as far as total sacks go, because even if he's got a lead in pressure rate, even if he's better at double team rate, and, we could look here, we could see where TJ Watt finished. Watt was right in the middle. I'm circling him right here with my cursor. So TJ Watt was double teamed at an average rate right there. You could see that y-axis. Nick Bosa's way over here on the side. Yet Bosa and TJ Watt's pass rush win rates are almost the same. Watt's a little bit better, not much. So just imagine where Nick Bosa would be on the vertical axis here, pass rush win rate, if you moved him to the middle where TJ Watt is. If he wasn't double teamed nearly as often as he was last year, if he was double teamed as much as TJ Watt was, well, I would venture to say that Nick Bosa would just be shooting through the roof here on the y-axis. I think he'd be somewhere up here. He might be off the chart. And if he's off the chart in pass rush win rate, that's probably going to correlate to more sacks. And if he has more sacks, then he has a chance to win Defensive Player of the Year. So there's one overarching key here. This will be all up to the 49ers supporting cast, because I think that you can essentially guarantee that Nick Bosa is going to show up and deliver a big season. I'm probably not going to talk about the contract in this video unless somebody asks about it, but I think it's safe to say Nick Bosa is going to be lining up in a 49ers uniform. I think they're going to compensate him well, and I think that he's a professional. He's a machine built to rush the passer, and I think that's just going to fuel him to continue producing better and better year after year. Now, when you talk about what's outside of Nick Bosa's control, though, is because we could say that he'll do everything he can in his power. What's outside his control is who the 49ers will be throwing out there opposite Nick Bosa. And I think that's a major, major key for this 2022 season as far as D-line production goes, because it certainly was really correlated to Nick Bosa's Defensive Player of the Year votes last year. Right now, I am looking down here to pop open the 90-man roster. All right, we're ready to put it up on the screen, and we can take a look to see what exactly Nick Bosa's supporting cast will look like. Why don't we make this a little bit wider, take up the whole screen, look at the defensive line. I have highlighted that D-line room. And you've got Bosa, you've got Armstead, you've got Kinlaw, you've got Ebukam, second string, Amenahu, Kerry Hyder is back, Hassan Ridgeway on the inside, Kamoko Toure. That's a nice, intriguing pickup. Good pass rusher, formerly played for the Colts. Maurice Hurst, Drake Jackson, the second-round draft pick. And then, they have 16 defensive linemen on the roster right now, which is a lot, but this is where the 49ers really like to stockpile. Jordan Willis was an effective edge rusher in a spot situations toward the end of last season. Kevin Givens, interior guy. Kevin Atkins, interior rookie out of Fresno State. Alex Barrett, practice squad guy last season on the edge. And then D Ford, they haven't released him yet, so we're still waiting to see what exactly happens with D Ford, but the release has been expected for quite some time. And Kalia Davis probably not going to play this year, but he's a sixth-round draft pick defensive tackle. So that was all 16 of the names on the 49ers roster right now as far as the defensive line goes. And, you look last year, and it took such a long time for the guys opposite Bosa, the edge guys opposite Bosa, to show up and perform. In fact, it wasn't until week 14 the guys not named Bosa truly started firing. I'm talking about Samson Ebukam. I'm talking about Charles Amenahu, who came over in that trade from the Houston Texans. There's a great video the other day online of Amenahu squatting a whole heck of a lot. The guy is just, he's a specimen. The guy's big, right? The guy can drive from his legs. He's tall. He's got that 6'5", 6'6" height, got good arm length. The 49ers liked a lot about Charles Amenahu, and they thought they got him at a bargain rate from the Houston Texans in that trade. So guys like Amenahu, guys like Ebukam, guys like Jordan Willis, the 49ers didn't get that compliment to Nick Bosa until very late in the season. And it really started with that win at Cincinnati in week 14. Well, this season they want to get it sooner. And they hoped they would get something from D Ford last year. And they did get a little bit early on, but of course he hit the shelf shortly thereafter. And then there was kind of a gap in the middle there that it was 75% of the year where Nick Bosa was wrecking shop, but Nick Bosa was also getting double and triple team. And you could only wreck so much shop when you're facing constant double and triple teams. So hence we saw that chart, the pass rush win rate chart with Bosa on the very right and a little bit lower than TJ Watt on the vertical axis. But I think if you get some of these other guys to fire. And we looked at Amenahu, we looked at Sansom Ebukam, and we're going to talk so much about Drake Jackson, the 49ers rookie, the number 61 pick. The reason that Jackson was their top draft pick this past cycle is because they believe he can complement Nick Bosa. And guess who else can complement Nick Bosa? The interior guys. This is huge for the 49ers because they were missing Javon Kinlaw last year, right? So the wide nine is reliant on big, strong, athletic bodies to be able to allow those edge rushers to spread out like an accordion far out into that wide formation so they can work on tackles on an island. That means that your interior defensive lineman must be close to dominant. They don't have DJ Jones anymore, but Kinlaw is a player who they drafted for that role, tailor-made for that role with his prodigious size. It's going to be up to guys like Kinlaw. They signed Hassan Ridgeway. Kerry Hyder might see some more time inside. Maybe he becomes an outside complement too. They didn't have him last season. It's going to be up to those guys to man the interior so that Nick Bosa and company can fire off the exterior. Eric Armstead's obviously another piece who might be inside out, probably base downs outside. Nickel downs, you're going to see him line up at defensive tackle. Everybody has to do their job because this line wins in numbers. Last season, Nick Bosa put some of these guys on his back and carried them for most of the season. But it wasn't until the 49ers started firing beyond Nick Bosa that line turned truly good, right? It was a slightly above average line when it was only Nick Bosa, but they were still getting beaten. They didn't get a pass rush against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers in week 3. Rodgers sat there and picked them apart. It happened more than once, right? It wasn't until that stretch run where the 49ers defensive line started looking like the 49ers defensive line that we talked about in 2019. And I think the goal for this unit is to get back to that 2019 level. And to get back to that 2019 level, you have to be as good as you were or better down the stretch of 2021. Because the question is, can the 49ers field a top 2 defense? There's a massive difference between an elite top 2 defense and a top 10 defense, like 6 or 7. And the 49ers the past couple of years have been the latter. In 2020, they finished number 6. In 2021, they're below average, below number 16 for a lot of the season before they turned it up. But they're weighted DVOA, which weighs the latest games more. So you weigh the end of the regular season and the playoffs. 49ers weighted DVOA said that their defense was the number 3 unit in football, which suggests they can get back to the top 5. They're number 2 in 2019. Top 3, top 2 defenses dictate football games. Top 5, top 10 defenses simply hold water. Then the rest is crap. But if you want to dictate football games, just like the 49ers did in 2019, you have to be in that very top echelon. And to be in that very top echelon, I think Nick Bosa has to be getting some real player of the year votes this next season. And for that to happen, his teammates have to show up. It's all up to the 49ers supporting cast because I think Bosa is a constant variable. He's going to give you what he's going to give you. I mean, the guy, again, is a machine built to rush the passer, but it's going to be very, very dependent on his teammates to ensure that those opportunities are open because strength in numbers is how the 49ers win up front. All right, why don't we answer some questions? I'm going to pop open this. This is my Bosa article from minicamp where he talked about Drake Jackson. I mean, I asked Bosa this very same question. I asked him, do you think that the 49ers around you are ready to perpetuate the way that they finished that 2021 season? And Nick Bosa is confident about it. He thinks so. I mean, there's reason to believe that Sansom Ebukam is now comfortable. He wasn't weeks 1 to 13, but he fired in week 14, new scheme. There's reason to believe that Drake Jackson's going to develop and get better as the year goes along. We don't even know how he's going to be exactly on day 1, but he's got tremendous bend and athleticism. First round caliber physical talent, right? Dropped to the second round. I haven't even talked about Kamoko Toure. I mean, this is an edge rusher with tremendous burst that has a proven track record in the NFL with the Indianapolis Colts. We know Kerry Hyder did it for the 49ers, although he's an inside-out kind of guy, but we know he did it in 2020. So to me, this 49ers defensive line might be one of the deepest that they've had. It could rival 2019. Now, whether or not they put it together, that's the bigger, more mysterious question. But if you want to check out the article with Nick Bosa, I'll go ahead and put it in the chat section right now. All right, I'm going to answer some questions, and maybe I'll even go away from Nick Bosa right here in case you guys have a few more. So I'll start with the Bosa questions, though. If your Mike says, hit the like button if you think Bosa will be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year in 2022. Yeah, go ahead, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button as well. We're going to be talking a lot about this kind of stuff this season because it's just so important to the 49ers' chances of balancing it out with a, I don't want to say rookie quarterback, but a first-time starter in Trey Lance. If you're going to have an elite defense, it can't just be one guy. And if it's not just one guy, if guys support Nick Bosa, I think he's in that DPOY conversation. Ability-wise, yes. But he probably won't get it because the media doesn't respect him. Again, the media is simplistic. And this is my criticism of the media. I know I'm part of the media, but I try not to be this. I try to look at this in a little bit deeper light. I try to take that bigger lens, zoom in a bit. I can't just look at the sack totals. I can't just sit there and say, well, TJ Watt had 22 sacks and Nick Bosa only had 15. He doesn't deserve consideration. No, I pull open some of the more advanced metrics. I pull open the tape. And when I pull open the tape, I see Nick Bosa getting double teamed a comical amount of the time. I mean, even triple team. We were laughing at it last year when we're doing some of the film breakdowns on the channel, right? Well, look, the data supports that. The data says that our eyes aren't lying to us when we're watching the tape. The guy's getting double teamed a whole lot more than TJ Watt. So if the media would look at this a little bit deeper, and that's why I make these videos, because maybe they'll get into the hands of the right people who have some of these votes, and they'll say, hey, maybe I should go rewatch some of Nick Bosa's games. I mean, who am I kidding? You probably won't do that. But still, I mean, if anybody can, see the value of looking a little bit deeper into things, then maybe Nick Bosa will be appreciated the way that he should be, because that double team rate last season was crazy. Max Crosby making an all-pro team over Bosa was nuts. Yes. I mean, we can go back here. Again, this is a good chart. Max Crosby has a lower pass rush win rate and a lower double team rate than Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa is a better football player and a better pass rusher than Max Crosby, hands down. I mean, this is what's not talked about enough. Nick Bosa led the league with 21 tackles for loss last year. That needs to be talked about a little bit more. All right, let's go through some more of these. Oh, Mike says you got to hit the like if you think Bosa will win the Defensive Player of the Year. So if you think you'll win, hit the like. Hit the like if you think he's going to be in the conversation. More questions, though. Let's go through these. Why do you think Bosa was snubbed from either all-pro team last year? Because of the sack numbers. I just – it's tough because – I thought Bosa did all that he possibly could because he had the sack numbers too. He just didn't have 22 of them. How many did Crosby finish with last year, by the way? I kind of want to look that up. Let's look up how many sacks Max Crosby pro. If it's less than 15.5, then this is a complete joke. Holy crap. Max Crosby only had 8 sacks last year? Yeah, well... Yeah, Max Crosby making an all-pro team and Nick Bosa not making one was a complete joke. I mean, I thought it was even before looking at the sack numbers. I was looking at TJ Watt before this, and TJ Watt was obviously the 22 and a half sack guy, so you can't take anything away from him. But Max Crosby, lower sack count, lower pass rush win rate, lower double team rate than Nick Bosa, and getting awards over him. That doesn't make any sense at all. He does cause so much pressure for quarterbacks. Nick Bosa is definitely a game changer, and that's what I'm getting at here. That's so important to consider. All right, we have a question here. Colin Cowherd keeps talking about Trey Lance isn't playing because he's a dead arm. What is this nonsense? Is there any truth behind it? Cowherd has been hating on Lance since day one. It's complete nonsense because the 49ers aren't practicing right now. So there's no practice for Trey Lance to be able to miss. And 2, Lance could be working out away from the facility, which he is. We see all these videos of Trey Lance thrown to Brandon Ayuk, thrown to River Craycraft. Arm looks just fine. This is not baseball, first of all. Dead arm, tired arm. That's an issue for a baseball pitcher who's going out there and throwing 95-mile-an-hour fastballs 120 times a game or, frequently per week if he's a bullpen guy. This isn't a football thing. Yes, you learn new throwing mechanics and your arm might be a little bit sore. Anybody who plays any sport knows that any tweak might lead to some discomfort, and that discomfort is aided through exercise and through the building of new endurance and through the acquisition of new habits. It's nothing to talk about on a talk radio show, though. People just see Trey Lance's name and they see the clicks it generates and they realize, oh boy, I'm not getting enough clicks because it's the middle of July and nothing's happening right now and stuff won't start happening until a week and a half from now. You just got to pump out as much out there as you can. And I'm sorry, but something as run of the mill as a quarterback working to develop his arm endurance, which probably is happening at some level for Trey Lance, just like it is for every other quarterback in the NFL, because everybody is constantly making some tweaks and adjustments to their game, especially these young guys. Just because that's happening doesn't mean you have to broadcast it and turn it into a scandal when it clearly isn't. So that's my issue with this arm fatigue stuff, because it's very clearly clickbait and it's coming from places, I guess, that have decided that they can't, generate content and get enough of an audience through legitimate means, right? So don't worry about any of the Trey Lance arm fatigue stuff. It's going to go the way of so many other ridiculous narratives, both for Jimmy Garoppolo and for Trey Lance. It seems the 49ers quarterback position is more vulnerable than other QB positions to this narrative because it's so scrutinized. This might go back to the Joe Montana and Steve Young days. But we've already been through so many of them. I forgot what the last one was. I mean, there have been a lot regarding Trey Lance, right? It all started last season with Jimmy Garoppolo when people said he was fat or overweight coming into OTAs when he was actually the same exact weight as he had been before. People saw a picture from a funny angle and created a whole scandal about it, right? And then not everybody, but most people were wrong about who was going to start, what was in the 49ers plans. And then most people were wrong about Garoppolo's finger injury and if he would come back. Of course, he came back from that. I mean, it's just been this whole parade of hot take, wrong about hot take, hot take, wrong about hot take, rinse, repeat in a circle. The latest hot take that people are wrong about is Trey Lance's arm fatigue. And we'll wait to see what the next one will be after this. But I just, really am looking forward to training camp actually starting so we can talk about football, which is what I try to do with this Nick Bosa video. All right, good. All right, if there are any more questions about Nick Bosa, please send them along. Otherwise, time for me to get going. Everybody like the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll talk to you all soon. Nick Bosa, 2022 season. Can he win that Defensive Player of the Year? That's the big question. If you think he can, hit that like button and we'll talk to you all soon. All right, everybody have a good Friday afternoon.